Cool. Let's get started. You're here. That's the important thing. So thanks for joining. My name is Daniel Graverson, and today I'll take you through this journey about PI to CPI migration, and we'll be focusing a lot on our latest innovations around the pipelines, because I do think it is an interesting topic, but there's also a lot of things here that we cannot you will need for these things to really be useful. Anyway, let's get started. So one of the things that I think this makes sense is FigAff. We do have a free tool that is recommended by SAP to start out your journey. This is about testing your migration journey. You can easily deploy it in your BTP account, and it comes with both a migration tool and a DevOps tool as trial, so you can actually explore these things and see how you can work easier with your SAP integrations. You need to find the right balance between SAPs and the FigAff tool for this to really work for you. So the thing I wanted to talk about today is the assessment. It is really an important topic, and I just want to show the tool we have. It is free for you to use, and it gives you a lot of insight about what is going on here. We'll talk about the pipelines, obviously. We'll talk about migration, and then we'll show you how to get started. So let's get started. Whenever I talk about PI to CPI migration, I always go back to this slide because it just gives a good overview of all the things that is going on with these scenarios. So you have some one-time activity, which is the migration. This is about you transporting objects from the PI system to the integration suite and ensuring everything's correct. And then once that is done, you want to move it into production, and that's the DevOps part of our tool. We will not be covering that in this sessions. We have a lot about that. Really passionate about that also, and it obviously should be a part of your project. But for now, we'll be focusing on the migration. We have the assessment. We'll cover that shortly. We have a testing capability that allow you to take messages from the PI system and run them on the CPI. We have an overview of the migration. And then we have the migration that takes your ICOs and convert them into real scenarios or process flows. Good. We have this blog series. We'll probably put it into the chat. This links where we covered a lot about these different topics we have about migrations. Probably should be doing a blog post also in that topic around pipelines, because it is something that is interesting and something that you need to understand whenever you're working with these things. Yes. So whenever you're doing migration, you need to know where you are, what's going on, what have you migrated, what have you not migrated. We found out that it was a little difficult actually to understand what was going on, who was working with which scenarios, etc. And therefore we created this migration overview, and it then escalated and became a bigger part of all the things that we're doing. If you can click on this button here, you will also be getting an overview over your full PO landscape or PI landscape, where you can see a lot of things, and that is our assessment, which I guess is the next one we want to cover. We started out, we had a lot of information about the PI system, so we thought we might as well improve it and give you some good qualitative insight about all the iFlows, all the connections, everything you had in your landscape that was important for you. And And the idea was obviously to create something that was valuable whenever you want to do a migration for these things. It will not come up and say this migration is going to take 236 hours, and not about what can be migrated or what has problems migrating, but it is a tool for you to go through and understand what goes on. You can also combine the data from this with the SAP assessment and then figure out what's really relevant for you. And it ends up with a report that looks like this. I don't know if you can actually see it here on the screen. It becomes a little small, but the idea is that for each ICO, we show all the connections that is using for this, what are all the receivers, message mappings, all the data types. And in one of the latest released, we added an option for you to do full or context-based search in your PI system and get this into this report. And the benefit for that was that we and you as users could easily create rules and say, okay, I want to see how many of my message mappings that are using a specific user-defined function, that are using imported archives, all these things that we figured out at some point in time, or when we were working with clients, like, okay, this is actually a problem. Can you tell me how many of your ICOs has this problem? Is this something we should be fixing, or is this just some outliers? Then with an XPath query, you can actually find this out. This is called our tagging rules scenario. Yeah, it's not complete. It will not give you all the details that you would. Well, it gives you as much details as we can. But obviously, you need to understand there could be limitations on what would actually be possible to deliver. And as you're working with these tagging rules, you'll probably figure out, okay, there is some scenarios we have in our system that makes it difficult to migrate. Tag them, and then you can actually see what is the impact on your migration. How many places do you actually use these things? If you have questions, comments, there is a Q&A section. You can go there and you can put in your comment, question, and then I'll try to answer that also. Yeah, but yeah, it will give you these Excel documents, splitting, multi-mapping, RC lookups, a lot of really interesting topics. And yeah, with the tagging, it is super easy just to add a new rule, and then you can actually get going. We may have a look at this later, but obviously it is something you need to be using when working with your integrations. And you can also see how many messages has been processed on an interface over the last month, which also gives a good input and reflection on what is actually going on and what you can actually do for some scenarios. Cool. I think that's the assessment. Yeah. Normally, whenever we talk about migrations, obviously depending on your landscape size, how many systems, etc., and you have in place, we recommend that you do a proof of concept migration together with your consulting partner, saying, okay, let's migrate these scenarios. Let's see what can be migrated, what works. Does this migration work for us now? Or do we have some things about what can be done here? You should figure out a bit important here is obviously the testing. How are you going to test this? How do you test it with business? How do you go live? If you already have a productive integration suite system, it's great. It just simplifies the process and enables you to actually run this fast. And then, yeah, what should this specific project scope look like? You obviously need to figure out if you have the 500 interfaces, you probably need to say, okay, we will migrate 30 interfaces in this proof of concept. And based on that, we will have some timeline and some idea about how we can migrate these things. You should obviously also be exploring different ways of migrating, what makes most sense, what will actually give you the best capability to handle these scenarios. Cool. Yes. You can also work with us on this. So we do have a project capability where you say, okay, if you are in this process and wanna get our help on your pilot project, you can sign up for this this pilot accelerator project, where we can go in and help you. We can go through your helping with installing the FIGAF tool. Hint, it is fairly easy. Most customers are able to do that by themselves in the B2B. We'll help you with the assessment, analyze it together with you, and then we will help you with some migrations and also set up DevOps, because I think the DevOps capabilities and being able to transport this is a huge impact on your scenario. If you want this, you can write to sales@figaf.com. It's 10,000 euros. Where you get access to the FIGAF tool, you get 30 ICOs that you can migrate, and some of our help to actually make sure you get started, go through this in an efficient way, not waste too much time on different other activities. So this is really one thing that could speed up this pilot project. But yeah, you can also start it, just take the migration edition and get started in that way. Pipelines. So the topic is, do you know the pipeline concepts? We should probably have added as a survey or poll, but I guess we forgot. So have you used it? Just put it into the Q&A, then I can see what's going on and if you have explored it. I think, well, I've been talking about it and trying to communicate it really a lot over the past few weeks, months. So I do think it is really a good use case. It makes a lot of sense for users to use this because it simplifies. Good. Then hopefully this, we'll do a brief intro to the pipeline concepts, but and then hopefully you can explore a little more about this. But yeah, so 50% here says they have explored it. I created I don't know, 2 months ago, whenever it was released, a blog about how you can actually get started and explore it. I think there's a little gap from exploring it to actually using it in a productive setting. And hopefully what I'll show today would actually make this possible. Okay, so what is Pipeline? Pipelines is an open source project. I don't know what's precisely how to say it, and the licenses behind it. It's created by the SAP organization, and the idea was to, based on a lot of the migration scenarios, the experience from the PI systems, about being able to separate routing logic from mapping logic and processing, retrying. All of this, if you wanted to build it into iFlows, became pretty complex, and that meant you spend a lot of time on things that could actually be created in an easier way. So that was the rationale behind it. I guess their scope was they were working with a lot of the larger customers, and there's like, okay, it is going to be complicated to for this large customer to actually use these migrated iFlows in a good way, being able to control and manage it. And that's the case for this. SAP have tested it for scale, and so far they're pretty happy with what it can do, how to process things. And yeah, it is a part of the migration recommendation. And the thing is, it is open source, so you can actually take this and you can modify it so it fits your your way of working, but obviously the more you move away from the standard, the more challenging this becomes. And obviously you should be considering, okay, what are the level we want to work with for these scenarios. So yeah, it means there's no need to build your own setup. There's also a lot of consultancies that do offer these accelerators to work with these things. So, as one mentioned here, partner directory is an integrated part of this, and there's no UI for this. I will show you some of this later. So, this is how this pipeline works, and for those that have been coming from an XI 3.0 days, you would probably see a lot of this looks quite familiar. You have the message processing where you're taking messages and process them, put them into the inbound conversion where you could do some adapter logic. You can then figure out how to process receivers. In this receiver, you will then call the interface information, and finally it will go into an outbound queue where you can then take the messages and send them to a custom iFlow for these things. There's mentioned here the 30 GMS queue limit. There is a limit on 30. You can change it to 100 just by, I don't know, I think you just go in and change it. You can you can also go up to 300, but there is definitely a limit. And I did hear someone that was complaining a little about if they got too many queues, etc. So it is, you don't want, if you have 1,000 interfaces, you don't want to expect to have queues for all of these ones. So this is one of the ways you can achieve this. So there, the incoming flow, if we take that, is you would have, for instance, if it's IDOC, you will use the SAP standard recommendation for this, or you will, and you're probably creating your own version of this because the way you are looking up system names, etc., may differ from the way SAP have set this up. If you, for instance, have a custom SFTP adapter, you would also create an iFlow that takes this SFTP adapter and send it into the standard queue. Then one of the templates they provide, it's an HTTP adapter that put message directly into this Q2 without the inbound conversion. And obviously Q stands for queue. Yes. Q1, 2, 3. So whenever you deploy this, once you have 4 queues plus some dead letter queues, probably also 4 dead letter queues, which means you can take all the failed messages and then restart them from scratch if something has failed with these things. You have the queue processing here. So once we have processed the message, we will convert it into XML or whatever we would need to do in this conversion logic. We can then, in the receiver determination, go and figure, okay, based on what we need to do, process this message and figure out where it needs to do or where it needs to go. So there is, in general, 2 ways of doing this. Either you can use process direct to a receiver determination flow. We normally, for now, we just support the XSLT part, which is hosted in the partner directory, which makes it really simple because you can just take this partner directory or call an entry with a message ID and you get, it is able to execute an XPath or XSLT on top of this, and this makes it a lot easier. So for this to work, you need to have integration suite. Then you have the GMS queues needed for this. If you have the Neo version, you should have the enterprise version, I think, for it to work. Yes. And then, yeah, you can plug in all of your custom iFlows that can do certain kind of logic, either conversion. And I think most of the time this would be the outbound logic. This is going to be mapping and delivery to receiving system. Good. We have also talked about the fact that if you want to have multiple different scenarios of this, if you want to have high priority queues, then you just need to copy these 4 iFlows, create a new set of queues for this, and then you can actually run this as a separate instance on top of with different priorities. So you can have something for bulk and something for high priority, low volume messages, etc. So there's different ways you can do this. You can also work something with Edge. Though it does not support partner directory, but with one of our customers, we are working on ways that it can actually work in a smooth way. And well, yeah. So this in the partner directory, we do have XSLTs. So you can have some keys about how many retries should you be making for such for a given scenario. So you can add that as a value. And then you also have routing XSLT and interfaces XSLT. You can see them here. Maybe you can see them, but this is just some of the samples that we have created that works on some of these things. Did I turn off the video feed? What are you not seeing? I hope you're seeing me. Oops. You're not seeing my face. I think you should see it. Okay, good. You see me. Okay. Thanks. But yeah, if problems, put it into the Q&A. Cool. Okay. So how do we want to create migration to this? And so there's obviously something we want to work on these things and figure out how this is going. So the way we have developed this, and I'll show you in a bit, is we would actually create one incoming iFlow where we just have the initial processing. If there's adapter modules, some content conversions, it will happen in that flow. And then you'll create all the outbound flows. For these things, we can create these XSLTs. And obviously, we can upload them to the partner directory. And yeah, we are considering also test case migration. It's not here at the moment, but hopefully we get that soon also. Okay. Let's get started. Okay, so here we have the FigApp tool. Right now I'm just running on our development system here, or our test system, where I can see what's going on here. So here we have our landscape. I can go here and I can go to the tagging rules. Here you can see we do not have any tagging rules. Let's just get them. Tagging rules, so it's pretty quick. So we just go here to this page, download it, and then we import it. Import these rules. So what are the PI systems we should be using for this, and what is the CPI system? So now we have some of these rules that we have created. We can then select process these tags, which will enable us to go all through this these searches, figure out how many documents we have of certain criteria, etc. And yeah, it does cost a bit CPU to do this. Good, and we can see we have some scenarios here that is using maintain order and runtime. If we go back to our assessment report, we can generate this with the current month. And what we can then see here in this report is yeah, we can see all of these artifacts here. Sender information, so you can see what kind of GMS file channel it is. And here we have all of these sender tags, so it is really easy to see what's going on with these scenarios. We have the message mappings, function libraries, and multi-mappings. A lot of things that could give you problem when migrating, and obviously you need to be cautious of these things. And out here we can see if it has been migrated, and we can see the number of successful messages we have. If you want to keep track of your migration project, you can also see it here. You can see how many interfaces you have done and what it has been migrated to. So one view, where you have everything that is going on in the migration. Okay, that's all the fun stuff. Or if we want to do a migration, so we would select an ICO. We will then go in and say, okay, let's select a package where we can add this in, and I created one that is timeline for webinar, and we can then create a name for this, let's call it webinar, just so we have some prefixes for this, so we know what is going on with these scenarios. Then we have a number of profiles. We have our local processes, we have our B2B scenario process, and then we have this pipeline all. And pipeline all will enable us to create all of these relevant artifacts. So let me show you. So we will click here on check, which will then go through and see, do we have all the relevant component in place? So now, because we have selected pipeline all, it comes up with some ideas about what we need to have as a part of this. So right now I've just added that we want a sender that's called webinar. If I make changes to this, I just need to regenerate this, and we can see the inbound flow is changed. Here we can see mapping of communication channels, and here we can see the receivers. We can see what comes out from the PI system. We can see these XSLT that will be created here. If we look at this one, we can see it is using these artifacts. And if we wanted to, we can also change the name of the target landscapes, process direct URLs, etc. You obviously need to make sure that there is some kind of a uniqueness on these systems, so you know how these things are being processed. And here we obviously, as we have had for a long time, have all the artifacts that is a part of your migration. We can just reuse them, or we can migrate them from scratch. So all of these artifacts has been migrated before, so that makes the process a lot simpler. We can see some of the things here. We can see resource handling, that we found 2 variables that should be used. There's something about a container variable that's used. So a lot of things that we can see that could be problems will be listed here, and you would also be able to see the tags that you have added. So because I made some changes, I can just check here, and now I can preview what are the different iFlows that will be generated. If I'm satisfied, I select migrate, and now we will actually process this. And I guess I forgot the small little tag, so let me just migrate it again. That's a good thing. You can migrate as many times as you like. So that was one of the new things that we added, the ability to deploy these artifacts after they have been deployed. So let's open one of these. So here we have the incoming flow. This is, so we can see it has just been created. We can see that it has a normal process direct URL here. So we just copy this one, go into our tool, and we then send this message into this. And now hopefully we can in CPI help us see that something has been processed. So we can see a message has been processed. Okay. If we look at these outgoing messages, we can see here so we have used the standard template from SAP for these scenarios. And then we are using our migration logic to create these different components. And this one, there's an error in this, so let me just check this. So it is on internet. So we have some templates that handles this conversion, but and look away, change it to plain, and save as a version, and then we can deploy it. So if we make changes to it, we should also give FIGAF information that there is a new version of this iFlow. So now it will take this version and do versioning on this, so we can actually see here if there was some changes on this iFlow. So we can see here, not that one. No. So right now, if I process the message again, hopefully this will be successful. There is also, because we have used this GMS, it will also reprocess this other message at some point in time after 5 minutes or whatever it has been configured to it. But now we can see this has been processed successful. If we want to see these messages, then we have our monitor here. Here we can see these messages that has been processed. We can easily go in and see, okay, so we send in a message here, 39, and then we can, 31, 39, cool. And then we can see all the flows that has been processed on this in a simple way. So then the only thing I need to show you more on this is obviously also, well, maybe we need a few more things here, is we have added here the pattern directory. This would enable you to see all the artifacts related to this. Am I on the wrong tenant? I'm on the wrong system. So here in the partner directory, we have just removed all the trading partner management systems. So we have a synchronize here where we can see what's going on. And if we then find these ones that were called webinar, something like that. So we have 3 here that's called webinars. I'll see if there is anything here. So I can go in here and I can edit this. If I want to make changes to this, I can go in here, I can reuse some of our test data and say, okay, I want to check this and see if I send this in to this XSLT, what is actually being produced. So you can test this, and this just makes it so much easier for maintenance, that you just have one value. You can go in, you can change it, try to see if that will produce the correct result. So now you can see it produces 2. If we are satisfied, we just select the update. If not, let's just change this one. So run, it does not really change anything. We can save it. So now it will be saved directly into the partner directory. And that means if we go here, we can see the differences in versions. So we can go in and compare this and see, oh, this value was changed from 1 till 5. Cool. Good. And yeah, the same with the other XSLT parameters. So everything you need for such a scenario is created, and you can just start sending messages into this. So that was a little about the pipeline. I hope that gave you some good idea about the ideas, the benefits, and what it could be used for. Questions? Just you have already found the Q&A. I hope this simplifies this scenario, and you can see, okay, we can do this a bit easier and run some migrations better. All of this is obviously built on the normal FIGAF migration tool. You can migrate also to these other profiles, but we figured out that it made sense to create these separate profiles. You can actually also use these local processes if you have your own framework in place to handle the same logic. Then you just migrate them individually, or create it with the partner directory, delete them, and then use that as the framework for it. So it is about ICO's receiver determination. So it takes data from the PI system, receiver determination, convert it into a BPMN model, convert channels, and then method mapping, function libraries. We have a lot on the function library. I spent a full half an hour on function libraries and how you could actually change these things and ensure you're doing well. I guess, Abesh, we did cover the partner directory, right? So you saw all these things was created in the partner directory, or is something missing? It's a place we can see all the items that's been uploaded. So all of this I showed you here. This is a view of the partner directory where we have synchronized it, have all the change versions in the FIGAF tool. So there's an API or a UI with all capabilities directly here, so much easier to work on these things. Okay. Yeah, I spent an hour on function libraries and how you can actually easily modify and migrate these. So we have a lot of capabilities in that scope for message mappings. I guess some of this becomes outdated when we are working with this routing, but obviously routing is still kept because we are adding it into these capabilities. For instance, we have so you can go in your system and say, okay, if we have this adapter module, create this Groovy script in front of it with some configuration. So you can take a lot of all of these if you have these large systems and just press migrate and it should work. You probably need to go in and modify some of these XSLT templates to make sure that it works for your scenarios. We have content file content conversion that just plugs in. No need to do any changes there. Time sending. Okay, cool. So obviously SAP has their own with some fixed templates, which makes it easy to create new templates, but a little difficult if you are outside of the scope of these templates. And I think that's one of the things that we can do. We can easily create a full new way of creating iFlows based on what data we have. Communication channels. So obviously you need to have the same kind of capability in the CPI world as you do in your PI world. And it would either be that you use the generic process direct iFlow or something like that for it. I could talk for a long time about the EDI and X12 and how is that a part of your scope? Just curious, also just put that into the chat or give a thumbs up. So when we talk about this, obviously there's a lot about, do we want to redesign everything using trading partner management, or do we just want to take our message mappings and convert these in a simple way? Because there is a lot of history in these things, and the challenge is you may not really be using a lot of these modifications, and it's like no one really knows why some partner has this specific property, but maybe it was important sometime, maybe it's not. But the fact is, if you want to reach out to these people and figure out, okay, so does this work or not, it's going to be a lot of work. With the FIGAF tool, we can convert all of these EDI message mappings directly into trading partner, into the trading partner systems. It will still be message mappings. You can just link them with process directs. And then you can obviously use the FIGAF tool to test this and also at scale. So if you're using integration content advisor, you can use the FIGAF tool whenever you're testing these messages. Well, what kind of problems you run into? Yeah, this is a not exhaustive list, and that is, I guess, one of the things that you need to be clear about. That we try to do as much magic as possible, but there is still going to be some challenges run into that require some manual intervention. Hopefully you'll go through some of these and figure out, okay, so we'll just create a tagging rule for this, and then we at least know it in advance and we can plan accordingly and say, okay, it uses some of these problems. Let's spend some time on figuring out how to redesign these things. We talk about testing, and yeah, a lot of things that we have been working on with the tool is to make it easy to do testing. So the challenge with a lot of migration projects is that if you just get someone if you get a developer to do the migration and then 3 days later or a month or 2 months later find some business person that can test this, you're out of luck. Most times this business person probably don't really care about this and don't know what is going on. But if they find something that is wrong, you need to change that iFlow and probably all the subsequent changes or iFlows that has been migrated. So the idea is move this as close as possible to the developers so they can actually do as much test as possible. They cannot do the connectivity test, all these things, but and especially when you get to talk about EDI, you don't want to get the business involved in testing these things. You just want to have a volume test and it's okay, let's ensure that we can run 100, 10,000 messages and it still produces the same invoice EDI messages. So the way we're working is we fetch data from the PI system, convert them into CPI test cases, and then we can run this and ensure that if there is any differences, we can work with these artifacts. You can see where there's some changes. You can go in and ignore these things. We do have it completely for our process directs or our local processes. Let's see if we've got time for it. Yeah, let's just do that. So this is then the old way of migrating. When I'm saying all it sounds bad, right? So if we go here, we create a new local process. We don't want to have a retry on. It's okay. We select deploy after migrate. That's probably okay. It will fail, but at least we'll be able to process these messages. So now we have created a new mapping here. So we already have fetched the data from the PI system. If we want to migrate it, we just okay. Yeah, so open in here. So one of the things we found was some of the ways we were processing this branching logic in, we could not replicate. So you needed to save as a version, deploy it, and then you need to inform FIGAF that there is a change here. I'm doing it on the wrong system, so that's the reason why. Yes, so we do have this integration with CPI helper. So we can select synchronize here, and then we need to synchronize this and a specific package. Pipeline webinar. So now we have this new version here, and that means we can migrate the test cases. So we can select here, this is a message coming from our PI system. We migrate it. We say, oh, so there's only one message in this. That's not really a good one. But what we then have here, and when we click at the result here, we will then be able to send this message actually to our PI integration suite system, and then we can get the result backs directly from this. So hopefully now it will be processed. And actually, I think it will fail because we have a problem with the communication channel that is being used here. You want to open the result, so we can see now it's been processed. It failed, but we are getting a diff error here. So if we can compare here, we can see, okay, there was actually something about some currency that was changed. Important or not? I don't know. We can go in and ignore this this element here, and let's also just ignore this currency for now. We can then compare it. So now we can see everything here was a success, and we ran as we were expected to do. So it is possible to create these cascades, migrate them, and then run them on the SAP PI system in a simple way, making it a lot easier to work on these scenarios. Cool. Questions? You have been active in the chat, so or in the Q&A, so just go and put some more into it. If there's something you think we missed about this. I really enjoyed talking about the DevOps tool and the capability. This is what makes it easy to run these things. And obviously, when you suddenly start to have an iCode that now consists of 3 different iFlows, 3 different partner directory entries, you need to have a good tool that can handle these transport. This is what the FIGAF tool can do. We have all the governance, we have virtual tenants, we have transport, versioning, comparison, just to make the process a lot more simple for you to deploy this integration. Git repository, Groovy editor, everything you need is just in one tool. So you can focus on developing integration, not about creating flows, context around it. The place where you should be running the FIGAF tool is in BTP Cloud Foundry. It deploys as a Docker image. It needs a Postgres service, and then you're good to go. You can connect this and get the data for it. You need obviously some cloud connector to connect to the PI system. Then you can see whatever is going on there. Yes. So it is pretty easy. Obviously, if you have a sub account, you can have the ability to add entitlements. You can also run it for proof of concept on your laptop. It is the same tool, same license, same idea, but obviously not really scalable, not secure in any formats. Yeah, we can connect to the Gits, etc. If you're working with migrations and if you're in one of these pilot projects, do spend 4 hours or whatever it will take to understand what the tool can do, understand how to connect it, create this assessment, and if nothing else, spending these 4 hours on this evaluation is well worth your time for this. Try to perform a few migrations, see how it works, and also experiment with the DevOps tool. If you click on this link, I don't know if we can get it into the chat, Michael, but otherwise, yeah, we'll send it out afterwards. There's 3 one-hour videos, one about installing, one about how to use it for migration. Obviously not with pipelines, but I hope it should not be that difficult once you have figured out all the other components. And then experiment the DevOps tool. That's another hour of video about how you can have this process about continuously testing these things. So yes, there's it is a chat, and you can see this if you got from your project. Check that blog post out, check the videos there. We cover how to go around these things. And we get a question: what's the difference between the paid and the free version? Not a lot. It is the same. It is the same software, same capabilities. In the free version of the FreeGAF, so if you are looking at, for instance, the Migration Edition, which is the one we normally recommend, and maybe Michael will also add a link to that, the things that you would be getting in the free version of the Migration Edition is the assessment, the testing tool, where you can take PI test data and run them on CPI. You cannot create test data directly in CPI in this version. You cannot run the test data for more or test for more than 30 days, but that should be sufficient for the migration. And then obviously you can manage it. What you will also get 10 ICOs you can migrate, and thereby understand, does this tool work? Can it speed up our processes? And if you have some message mappings where you are using function libraries parameters, or any other more complex scenarios, the answer is yes. It will definitely reduce the time, and it is well worth the €100 it costs for each ICO or receiver determination you migrate. You also get 2 months of access to the development tool, or the DevOps tool, where you can see all these capabilities that you have, and there's a link to it. You go sign up for that, and that would be a good way to get started using the tool and understand what can be done. Let's see, anything I forgot? Yeah, so that was the end. Thank you for a lot of good questions. Any other questions, comments? I would love to hear. Is this something that you think would be worth spending these 4 hours on exploring? Or do you want to take the next step and use our help and get a little more in your migration scope projects? Thanks, Abesh. Glad you enjoyed it. I hope you could see how the partner directory pipelines all link together in just one seamless flow. We still have a few things that would be really nice to do. I definitely need to have the transport capability in place and the testing, but at least we get started and we have something that makes this possible. So I'm glad we did it in this way, and not went into so we had, when we started out, either want to do a UI on it or the transport capabilities, but I'm glad we did on the UI, because I think that's the biggest issue where we need to get started. You have a raised hand, just put some questions into the Q&A. But glad you enjoyed it. If questions, comments, put it in the chat, and otherwise drop me an email if you have something else on these things. I do hope you will go in and explore the Migration Edition tool, see how it works in your projects. So let's see if there is any questions I've forgotten. Then let me know. Cool. So yes, thanks for attending. Thanks for all your good questions, comments. I really appreciate it. Be sure to check it out. And if you have comments, something we forgot, ping me or schedule a call, and we can go through some of your more pressing questions. Oh yeah, we would expect that this will be released today or tomorrow, so it should be good.